Good morning and welcome to Motivational Mornings, the podcast that gets you going before you get going.
Good morning and welcome to Motivational Mornings. My name is Ryan, and as always, I'm here with my co-host Vivi. Now, for today's episode, we're going to discuss the book Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. Now, this book was definitely a heavier read. The book was about Viktor's personal experiences being a prisoner in a concentration camp and having a look inside the mind of a prisoner. Viktor also had this theory that's throughout the book called logotherapy. And this is the theory that having a meaningful life is the force that motivates a person. So we're also going to discuss this theory throughout the podcast episode as well. So for our first point, I want to discuss how Viktor looked at a person's meaning in life. So he thought that meaning in life is like a movie. And you see, movies are made up of thousands upon thousands of pictures. And each picture in the movie has their own individual meaning. But if you just pause the movie and only look at one picture or that one moment in the movie, you won't be able to understand the entire movie. Likewise, Frankl says, to get the meaning of the movie, you have to watch the whole thing. You have to see each individual picture and understand them. So Frankl talks about how life is similar to this and finding meaning. In order to find the meaning in life, you need to wait until you've seen the whole thing. And how do you find meaning? You can't force someone to have or find meaning in their life. They have to find it themselves. It's like humor. You can't just tell someone to laugh. They're not going to laugh. You have to tell someone a joke, and it's up to them to decide if the joke is funny. Same thing with finding meaning in life. You can't just tell someone to find meaning in their life. They have to find it themselves. Frankl mentions a study with unemployed people who lived in poverty and suffered from depression. He found that because they had no job, they felt they had no use. And if they felt they had no use, they felt like they had no meaning in life. However, Frankl asked each of them to volunteer at various organizations. For example, maybe like volunteering at a public library, a soup kitchen, pet organizations. And what Frankl found is that volunteering, it did not improve their financial situation. I mean, they were volunteering for free, but still the depression in the participants of the study was often reduced or gone altogether. And that's because the volunteer experience gave the participants something that they can interpret as having meaning in their life. And that goes back to Frankl's theory of logotherapy, in that having a meaningful life is a force that motivates a person. So what can we take away from all this? Well, the big thing is you can't always choose your own situation, but you can choose your attitude. Frankl argues that you don't find your life's calling and then live your life. Instead, you should live your life and then find your life's meaning.
And in terms of how you do that, Ryan, how do you find your life's calling? Well, I totally agree with you. Viktor Frankl's point about living your life to find that is definitely true. However, Viktor Frankl always points out throughout this book constantly how he who has a why to live can bear almost any how. So what does that mean? You have to have a reason why you're doing something. You may not be your life's calling, so to say, or exactly what you're put on this earth to do, but you should always be considering the reason behind your actions to do a certain task. For example, some of the most common whys that Frankl pointed out through his writing are things such as love, work, or dignity and actual suffering. So the difficulty in going through a situation. So if you kind of think about it, a lot of the things we do, those are the reasons why we're doing it. And if you can think about that throughout the entirety of living your life, then you have a why. Then you have a guiding force or a guiding point to get you through almost any single how. Okay, so now maybe you're thinking about, what is my why? What is it? Well, maybe I will encourage you to think about it this way. When you're doing something, the next thing you do, that requires a significant amount of effort, say a new job, say you're having a new partner and you're trying to do something together, or maybe you're trying to make a significant financial decision, something along those lines. Think about the reason why you're doing it. Are you doing it because you want to provide for your loved ones in the future and you want to secure some sort of passive income stream? Are you doing it because you enjoy the work of finding passive income? Are you doing it because you just merely enjoy working and you love that kind of work? Or are you doing it because you know it'll be a challenge? You know it'll be something that you have to struggle with because you're completely unused to it. All those three might be an example of someone's why for doing something like starting a new business or picking up some extra work on the side. So I would encourage you to think about your why. And in terms of, all right, maybe I'm going to do this, but it probably won't go smoothly. Well, that's definitely true. In the book, Viktor Frankl talks about how there was terrifying things that happened into the camps and how him and his fellow prisoners were stripped away to almost nothing, to be completely naked, and then being given clothes of smaller or larger size that didn't even fit. They're even all shaven and they're all hair were cut completely off, female or male. However, he noted an interesting fact. He said that the human body is very, very resistant and very, very able to get used to anything. But if you ask him how, there's no way of explaining it. For example, he talked about people who came into the prisoner camps with difficulty sleeping or chapped lips or some sort of small medical conditions that they were trying to treat outside of the camps. However, within a few weeks of being deprived to almost nothing, every single person was sleeping soundly, had no more cold sores or no more chapped lips. Everything went back and reverted because the human body got used to it. Now, if you ask Viktor Frankl, a medical doctor who happened to specialize in psychiatry, he had no idea how this happened. But that's just a comforting fact, knowing that you're going to go through struggles, you're going to go through difficulties when you're experiencing something new and trying to find maybe the reason why you're doing something. However, don't worry, you will adapt. That's the whole part of being a human.
I want to add to that point. I'm just going through my Audible notes right now, and I see something I think is going to be really relevant. And actually, for all our listeners out there, by the way, if you never used Audible before, it's a great service. It plays audiobooks, and it has a note feature where you can pause the audiobook at any time. You can jot down notes, and it will remember what specific part of the book that note relates to. So I find it a lot easier than paper books because, sometimes when I'm on the bus going to work, I don't always have a pen and a pad of paper on me. So yeah, a little neat thing about the service. Anyways, back to my point. My note here says that humor can get you through a lot of difficult situations. And Viktor explains how he would make up these stories with a fellow prisoner about how their new concentration camp habits would affect their normal lives when they get freed. So, for example, Viktor's friend was a surgeon, and they would just tell these ridiculous stories about how once they're freed, Viktor's friend would go to surgery and the assistant would be doing surgery and he would just be yelling at them, telling them to hurry up. And it's definitely out of place and ridiculous, but these kind of jokes made them laugh and it got them through the tough times. And studies have shown that humor is able to get people through difficult situations. So whenever you find yourself in a tough situation, maybe it's worth a shot to find something humorous in the situation, and it'll help you get through the tough time.
And since it is the holiday season, I'm going to give you guys a little gift of a preview of the book that we're going to read next month or discuss next month. Relating to humor and why that's even useful, our next book that we're going to review next month will be Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. And it's all about negotiating and how you can be a negotiating expert. And one of the points that he points out in the book, for all you listeners who will listen next month, is that when being a humorous or a pleasant and polite and playful negotiator, you're more likely to win in any negotiating skill. So for example, if you go out to the market and you're trying to buy a certain something in, let's say, like an Istanbul market where you're just walking through the streets, if you're playful and negotiable and you kind of just trying to negotiate your prices down, a lot more times you'll be more successful. So in accordance to humor, yes, it's just a good way to go about life, and just kind of being playful and happy and cheerful, and also humorous on getting you through certain difficult situations, to what your point exactly pertains, Ryan. Lastly, what I want to add, talking about that there's meaning in suffering. Many of us spend our lives in the desperate attempt to completely eradicate suffering. So if you think about like Buddha or Buddhism, it's all about like eradicating suffering, because life is suffering according to a lot of Buddhism tradition. That happiness will come when suffering is gone, by eradicating it. But Frankl, not arguing for happiness, but something greater, believes that there is a greater meaning in suffering. Suffering doesn't automatically make one life void of meaning, but it can actually offer meaning. And a quote from the book is, "An active life serves the purpose of giving man the opportunity to realize the values in creative work, while a passive life of enjoyment affords him the opportunity to obtain fulfillment in experience, beauty, art, or nature. But there's also purpose in that life which is almost barren of both creation and enjoyment, and which admits of one but possibly high moral behavior." So, namely, like someone's existence is kind of restricted by external forces, and a creative and a life of enjoyment are banned to someone like that. But not only creativeness or enjoyment meaningful, but there is also meaning in life in general. Then, in summary, life must be a part of suffering, and suffering is an incredible part of life, and it shouldn't be seen as something that we should avoid. See, back to the book, most men in the concentration camp believed that real opportunities of life had passed, and then there was opportunities or too many challenges ahead, that those people just gave up and simply vegetated away and became one of the prisoners who you'd know would be dead, unfortunately, soon. And one of the dreadful kind of realities that those concentration camps offer to Viktor Frankl is an interesting fact. So in the camps, there was these people called capos, which were prisoners who were the heads of the prisoners. So they were prisoners when they came in, but because they were the head of the prisoners, the guards and all the German Nazis and all that gave them cigarettes. However, because they were given cigarettes, they had to act as guards to their own fellow prisoners. And one thing that Victor noticed, and that was a fact, was when you saw prisoners who were given cigarettes who were not capos, you knew that they had chosen themselves to go to the gas chambers. So you knew that within the next few days that they had just simply chosen to vegetate and not to further pursue that suffering and pursue that life. And so it's just a good point to kind of end and summarize this entire episode, to maybe convince you a little more so that life is part of suffering. They're not different. They're intertwined. Now, obviously, there's a lot more to this book, and it's honestly one of the most influential psychological books of the 21st century. It's been downloaded and read over 12 million times. And I don't want to make this seem like I'm just being a super depressed guy around the holiday season. I wish all you guys the best in the upcoming new year. However, it is nice from time to time to come back and realize how much better we actually are off today than some people were in the past. And on that note, if you guys want to pick up the book for free, use our Audible trial link, which is audibletrial.com/motivational mornings, to try the service for a month to see if you like it. And if you don't, you can cancel it and not continue it after you've gotten your free book. But as always, hope you guys have a fantastic day.